Happy Sunday once again. So, today we are talking about thinking and thoughts and understandings and revelations. And I came across this little book. Spirit speaks to me in the most unique ways. I was at Target, and I go to Target to get, one thing, and I stroll around the store and come out with $200 more. So I don't know if that relates to you, but I stopped at the book section, and this book really just kept drawing my attention. I put it back. I walked around the store 3 times, and I picked it up. And when I started reading it, I could understand why. One, because the chapters are 3 pages long, and my attention deficit disorder will let me read it. My dyslexia doesn't, kick in, and it's very profound, simplistic teaching. Don't believe everything you think. And I really, early in my days in Science of Mind, the quote, change your thinking, change your life, didn't really make any sense to me. I was like, what is thinking? What are thoughts? What really is going on? How do I create this? And what has been revealed to me, and how I have a greater understanding of, is thoughts are a noun. Thinking is a verb. And pain is inevitable. We are human beings on this planet, and there are going to be things that happen that make us comfortable and uncomfortable, and we can make up all kinds of spiritual stories about that, and we often do. And that's part of our nature. That's part of the mind. And isn't it interesting how 2 people can sit in a coffee shop, both looking out the same window at the beautiful flowers and the roses, smelling the same aromas, and one person can say, oh, life is so good. And the other person would say, life sucks. I hate my boss. I hate my job. I hate everything. And I've always found that fascinating because I've been on both sides of the fence. Because we're human beings, we're on both sides of the fence. And the truth is there's no blame or shame in either side of the fence. It's what's missing is an understanding. That as we're raised and the relationships that we have, we form opinions about the world. I know the way I was raised, and as I spend more time with my parents and they're aging, I've come to understand how I became who I am. Some of it's genetics. My son recently, last Sunday when we left here, we got an emergency call, and he was watching our kids, and he had to go to the emergency room, and he had kidney stones, and they were too big to move out. So it created a lot of pain, a lot of worry, and I walked in, and I said, how you doing? He's like, life is good. We got a doctor. And when I had my kidney stone, it was like, I'm dying. And we all meet pain in different ways, and he just traversed it so beautifully. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to take a little credit because I raised him. But actually, he's done a lot of work on his own, that he was so committed to changing his outlook on life and his thinking that he went in deep and met his pain. And that's what we're all continually doing, meeting our pain, and then we think or we decide something about it. And in this little book, it's so fascinating, easy read. One of the things he says is, let me find it here. One who looks around him is intelligent. One who looks within him is wise. So we start to understand that wisdom is when we start to look at ourselves. It's so easy to go outward and blame when things are uncomfortable. Of course, we're allowed to say things when we're uncomfortable or we want to see something different or we want to do things a different way. But also there's processes for these and respect and boundaries, and all of those things are law and love. In this book, he talks about the root cause of suffering is our thinking. And I don't know about you, but I can relate to that. I can truly relate to that. There's a story in this book that I want to talk about. A long time ago, a young Zen monk lived in a small monastery near a forest and a lake. A few senior monks occupied the monastery, while the rest of the newcomers tootled about. And so this new monk was having a very very, very, very challenging time meditating. And every sound, every object, every stone, every child laughing, every bird, it would just make him angrier and angrier and angrier. He could not sit in meditation. He had opinions and thoughts about what meditation should be and how it should be. And so he would often go back to his mentor and report back that he had a difficult time. And his mentor said to him, "Do you know what's really making you angry?" And he said, "Yes. The birds, the children, the sounds, that I want to sit on my cushion and enjoy life and go deep within and discover, my true self." And he said, "It just starts. This minute I sit on my pillow, it starts." So the monk told him to go find a quiet place, and his senior monk, and told him to go find a quiet place and try again. So the monk tried this place and that place, and still yet those sounds, the senseless stimulations just drove him crazy, and he could not get into the practice of meditation. So one day he was walking, and he was discussing this with his fellow monk, and he said, "Hey, go down to the lake. The water is calm. There's a boat. You can row out to the middle. You can sit, and nothing can bother you." So he's like, "That sounds lovely." And so he goes out, he gets in the boat, he gets to the lake, he meditates, and it's just so beautiful. The stillness of the water and the rocking of the boat, and no sounds, no interruptions. So he goes back to the monk master, and the monk master said, "Fine, go do it again." So he goes back out, he's meditating, and he decides to open his eyes to peek. And here comes this boat, and the boat's coming towards his boat, and he stands up and he's screaming, "Hey, you in the boat, please go the other way. You're gonna hit me, I'm meditating." And the boat doesn't change direction. He's like, "Can't you hear me? I said, turn your boat around." The boat keeps coming, and inevitably it hits his boat, and he's so shook up, and he's angry, and he looks in the boat, and no one's there. So he realizes in that very moment, that gift from the universe, that it isn't the outward things that are upsetting him. That anger is found within. After all, there was no one in the boat for him to be angry at. So he goes back and reports to his senior monk, and the senior monk says to him, "Well, what did you learn?" And he said that my thinking about the things that are out there has disturbed the peace that I already am. Now, I'm shortening the story and adding a little Tracey flair to it, but the reality is this is how we move through life. Things happen. We may like them or not like them. We immediately label them. And there are terrible things happening in our world right now. And he talks about in the book that we have to take the conscious high ground, that we have to see the world, our surroundings, our families, our communities, the way we want them to be, that we have to commit our consciousness to the change that we want to see instead of playing in the world. And Ernest Holmes says this as well. My favorite Ernest Holmes story is when he was walking with his friend, and they would walk by this yard, and there were lots of weeds and overgrown amongst the beautiful houses and roses, and his friend would inevitably be disturbed and say they need to clean up their yard, they need to hire a gardener, and it just, in this beautiful surrounding, this one eyesore. And I don't know about you, but when I'm walking around my neighborhood and we have a HOA, sometimes I go, well, the HOA didn't give them a ticket, so I have work to do as well. We all do. That's the nature of traversing our path and seeking, is to come to a higher understanding that the calm and the peace that we're looking for, we already are. And the disturbance is what we're looking to be revealed to us so that we can excavate it and shine pure as the bright bliss and awareness. So Ernest Holmes in the story, as his friend is complaining and going on and yoo-hawing about all the things that he thinks is wrong with his sight of this yard, Ernest Holmes treats as they walk, treats as they walk, treats as they walk. And eventually, they notice the yard's a little bit cleaner. Someone's come and mowed the yard. Someone's come and pulled the weeds. Someone's come to help the person in the house that they felt was an eyesore. And then finally one day they walk by, and this house is beautiful as the rest. And he turns to Ernest, and Ernest says, all work is done in consciousness will be yielded to you in the world. So when there's work to do, we have to look out. And I know it's harder and harder to do that in our world. These United States are so different than the way I was raised, maybe the way you were raised. And I don't do politics on Sunday. I really don't. I don't watch TV. I scroll Instagram. I get all my news from there. So then I have to go investigate it, make sure it's real. And, it's just a hole of doom. I have not seen very merry things come from Instagram these days. And in the plight of some of the things that you may have heard about, in the loss and sense of, I don't know what to do. And it's not only in the world, it's in your community, it's in your home, it's in your relationship, it's in your job. Maybe you don't like your boss. Maybe someone in your family is annoying you. It's not easy. Being a human being is not easy. Taking action is not easy. I read from a beautiful minister at United down in the valley that somebody was chastising her for spiritual bypass for her taking the high conscious road. And she said, you know what? You're right, I am. I am taking the high conscious road. Because in the 60s, I was at Kent, I was in university, and I did the stand-in when the students were shot, and I stood in my power, and I did my time then. But now I'm spiritually mature, and I do my work in consciousness. And this is what I'm inviting us into today, is that to question ourselves when we meet in adversity, have we done our work in consciousness? Have we been dedicated to our disciplines? Do we apply right thinking, right action, and right motive and motivation and motion to the things that we feel that we must stand for? Have we felt in to that little small voice for the actions that we take every day? I personally don't know what to do about what's going on in the world today, so I, like my beautiful friend, take the conscious high road. When I see something, I go within and I picture the world that I want. I slow down and I check into the nauseum and the feeling I get in my stomach, and I know that I'm making up a story, and that reality isn't really always what we see. Especially today with AI, you never really know what you're looking at. But consciousness creates, and we are the great creators. It was bestowed upon us to create the world that works for everybody, but how can we justify that if we don't create the world that works for us first? How can we cast the first stone if our backyard isn't clean? How could we do that? I don't know. I ask myself that question every day when I'm judgy. Because I'm judgy. I'm a person. You're judgy. You're a person. But you know what? The beauty is that we can say, oh, you know what? I got it wrong. I forgive myself. I forgive others. I go back. I pick up my book. I read it. I evaluate my thinking. I take responsibility for the movement I have in the world. And I do the best that I can. Being a parent isn't easy, especially at 60, I talk about my kids often enough. Some of you appreciate it, some of you don't. But it is the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, is learning to reparent in a way that doesn't cause more damage, so that they don't have a world like the one that we have. So that when they're in community, they meet it in a loving way. So that when they're in school, they're kind to their teachers, but have boundaries and know their self-worth. Maybe we didn't get those gifts because of the way our parents taught, but you know what? They were taught that same way too, so then we see how forgiveness answers the picture. That if we truly believe that everybody's doing the best that they can, and that they check in, and that they truly want to create the world, they would see that no one person is responsible for, one of everything, that we can only manage ourselves. And that's the beautiful gift of law. Law is impartial. It doesn't like me more than it likes you. Excuse me, I'm hitting my earring here. It doesn't. It says you are as beautiful as me. You deserve as much as I do. There is no way in this world that I could have good that you cannot have. There's no way that the good isn't profound enough for you and it's not for me. Sure, somebody might get a job that you applied for. That's skill. So we have to apply right thinking. We have to apply when skills are the odds or the issue. So you can't really look at a problem that's facing you without having dissected it and asking the real question, how did we get here? What can we do? What do we need to formulate? What conversations do we need to go into? Again, family, community, church, center, job, bosses. And what happens is a beautiful thing starts to develop when we get clarity and understanding. Then when we see that things are going on, we're not reactive. We're not coming from our thinking, because our thinking is never really what's going on. There's a reality, a beauty that everything is purposeful and balanced. And when we have crooked thinking, crooked thoughts, we go in and we ask to make the crooked places straight, so that I may see with thy eyes and not with these, that I may hear with your ears and not with these, that I may open my heart so wide and be so vulnerable. I had the most beautiful conversation today about vulnerability. And being vulnerable is hard if you don't trust. But many people call for vulnerability. And then what do we do with the information when it's out there? Trust, love, vulnerability are all part of greater understanding. Ernest Holmes' teachings are so beautiful. They are principle bound. And this is consciousness. And consciousness creates. And if we don't like what's created, we can't blame any one person. We don't even need to blame ourselves. We just need to go, crooked thinking. Okay, back to the drawing board. What do I really want to see? What do I really want to see? What do I really want to see? And we have to spend time there. We have to spend dedicated, conscious commitment time to our own betterment and our own good. You know, I used to think enlightenment would be, the dawn of Aquarius, because I am an Aquarius, so I just thought, it was enough work, being a nice enough person, being a kind person, letting people validate boundaries. I think everybody, if you really check in, can say that we all have these questions about ourselves because we have families. We have jobs, we have people, we bump in, we run in. But I have come to understand through now a committed practice every morning in prayer for every single person that what my mind would say for is against. It doesn't matter to me. We're all doing what we think that we need to do, and the key word there is thinking. But what if we laid down the sword? What if we took a deep breath? What if we asked the question, what greater is trying to be birthed here? What if that meant you had to leave your job and that you knew something greater would be there for you? What if that meant maybe giving your boss, who may be or may not be a skilled employee, maybe giving them a break and asking them, hey, what's going on with you? Maybe, just maybe, if we went within and looked and got in tune with our highest and best self, dropped the pretense, stood in our authentic self, and aligned with the reality that we are, came into right thinking, right embodiment, right action, right movement, through the course of still practices, to see when we're being reactive, and that we could pause and ask, what's trying to be birthed here? Something beautiful would come, because consciousness, if you truly understand our teaching and believe it, consciousness births experience. And the experience we have is the consciousness, collective. We're all tapping into that collective consciousness, so thoughts by this nature come and go. Thinking, drop thoughts in, we attach to it, it makes our stomach go, or yippee, doesn't really matter, right? And then the thinking starts. And then we start making up ideas and thoughts about things. And sometimes it's in favor and sometimes it's not. But the reality is, if we don't, as a collective group, stop and take that pause and go into right thinking, meaning greater understanding, and bring in principles that align this teaching, then if we actually do that, and I do believe you are, and we're doing the best that we can, there are mornings where I do it and there's mornings where I don't. And I notice the difference in my day when I've connected with myself and the days that I don't. The days that I don't, I want to scroll and sit at the TV and spend all day on the phone. And the days that I'm connected, I feel energetic. I want to clean. I want to talk to people about goodness and love. I smile at people, and something inevitably wonderful comes my way. And I want to close with this lesson about this. We were at my mom's house, and Bill was doing what Bill always does. He was fixing something and cleaning their bathroom and changing my dad's bed. And Luke, who is 4, I'm like, where's Luke? He's out in the backyard pulling my mom and dad's weeds at 4. And he'd fall backwards, and he'd pull another one, and he'd pull another one, and he had this massive pile of weeds when I went out there. And he's like, look, Mommy, look what I did for Gigi Ma. No one told him that. I cried. I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even have to make you do that. Efforts and consciousness pay off. I bring into consciousness every morning the way I would love for my children to grow and understand and know. And so he walked in so proud, carrying his pile of some of his weeds to my dad. And my dad's like, way to go, grasshopper, because that's what he called us. And he gave him $20, and Luke goes, a penny. And I go, try 2,000 pennies. He goes, a penny. Can I go to the store now? I need some candies. And I said to him, with no expectations, great is given. We just take these bound principles into our lives every day and use the story of the youth and the good things that are happening. There are beautiful things that are happening amongst the sorrow and suffering. Take some time to look within. Bring your consciousness up. Shine it out. Envision what you want. Your desires are God's desires. You are the child of God. You are in the consciousness of the great being that wishes to birth into existence everything that you wish for. You do not need to do anything, but the mind will tell you you do. And so it is. I'm going to close this in prayer. I just know right here, right now, the beauty of the beloved, the divine essence, that which is true, the reality, shines bright evermore, so bright that any discordant thought can be seen in front of it, that any idea of lack or limitation or not enoughness or not rightness or any imbalance in our human system is countered with the beloved. The mere fact that you were born is the evidence of a job well done, that you have the beauty and the essence and the love and the light, and that as we work through our humanness and our problems and our pain, that journey brings us back to ourselves. As we go inward and we go upward and we expand and we see the bigger picture, we speak with love, we share love, we understand love at its highest meaning. And it evacuates anything unlike itself. It unties the knots and lets energy flow freely. We begin to be in alignment with it to where we understand that there is a knowing within us that is always knowing. It is the awareness that is observing everything. And if we take the pause, we can sense it. And then we fall into it and we see that it is directing everything. And that we are directed by its command at the most holiest and high. I call this into play here for anybody here that is struggling, for anything that needs to be done or moved or shifted, for any illness or health, relatives, family, the world, the families of the recently slain individuals, that they find the peace that they already are. That these things will play out and something yet is waiting to be birthed. And I place my consciousness there in that greater yet to be. And I live with the light that I wish to see in the world. I call that into play for yourself and for me and for everybody that is here and not here, those who walk by our door. I stand in celebration of the beauty of that which you are, and I call it good, and I call it now, and so it is.